welcome to another exciting episode of Strange Tales Weekly. I'm your host, Jess, and joining me as always is Eric.
Hey.
And Joe.
Hey.
And the ancient alien rock band, Majungas. Welcome, Mike and Max.
Hey. Howdy, strangers.
Nice suit, Mike.
Thank you. The compliments never get old.
Nice suit. I saw that suit in person.
You did. Up close, yeah.
Yeah, we saw each other at Alien Con.
Uh-huh.
Well, how was Alien Con?
Busy for me, I don't get to have as much fun as people like Jess do, I'm kind of glued to my booth there. So, I have mixed feelings about it, because first and foremost, I'm like a huge fan of this thing. That's why I did the album. So I want to be out there and listening to the panels and all that. But I sort of have to live vicariously through other people who come by and visit. But honestly, there's nothing like it, for me, especially. We did these albums themed around ancient aliens, and in that building, you have all the fans, you have all the researchers, authors, world explorers, co-stars of the show. They're all in the same house, as you, in one night, so it's awesome.
How did you get started being interested in ancient aliens stuff?
Through the TV show, primarily. I remember those early episodes. I was like a young adult when they came out, before it became like a season. And I kind of feel like I grew up with it, and I always liked it for its open-mindedness. It's outside of the box framework and way of thinking. And I appreciated that more as I got older, because I started to question some things about life, some serious questions, and I wasn't finding comfort in like the conventional answers. So ancient aliens, made a lot of sense to me as I got older. And yeah, it's just those two bridges just crossed, because I was doing my thing with Majungas and I needed a cool project to do. And ancient aliens, to me, just the level of interest reached new heights. And, I just had that light bulb moment, like, oh, I should do an album about ancient aliens.
So was Majungas a thing before you got into ancient aliens then?
Yeah. So I started Majungas in 2013, and how I kind of got into it is primarily through writing. I was exploring and experimenting with a lot of different platforms of creative writing in my early 20s. And just along that same timeline, I was studying guitar. I was taking lessons, and I was just trying to do it to connect with the instrument, because I was a huge classic rock fan. I'd been to over like 50 concerts, and I just wanted to have that experience. And I never thought about, blending the two. But one day my guitar instructor was listening to some recordings that I was making, just so I could I was recording them so I could get better and listen to myself improving. And they were all original compositions. And he just said, hey, you should throw some lyrics on it. So that's when that movement started for me, making music. And I founded the band in 2013. And my MO as a songwriter has always been to do strange stuff, tell weird stories, whether they've been original or about something that's factual. And we had a run at that for about 3 years. And aliens has always been an interest in mine, but I never wanted to just throw like an isolated song on an album about an alien or UFO incident. If I were going to do it, it was going to be all out. The whole album was going to be themed around aliens. So it just, it took us an album and a couple singles. And actually the band split apart when I started Ancient Astronaut Theory, which is our first album. And I took the album and whatever remnants there were of it from when I had the band into the recording studio and finished as much as I could until I started to collaborate here with Max. And that entire album was done in the studio. And then so was Charioteer Through Wormholes, which we released 6 months after.
How did you meet Max? How do you guys know each other?
Actually, from our playing days, when I had Majungas, the original band, and we were doing gigs in the local circuits, Max had his own band called Cherry Lift, and we actually shared a lot of lineups. So we sort of knew of each other, at that point in time. And also,
we met through a mutual friend through the store that I run, the guitar shop in LaGrange, which is right outside of Chicago.
Yeah, I was going to say too, another interesting connection is when I talked about taking guitar lessons, I took lessons at a place called Stone Grove Guitar, in LaGrange Park, Illinois, where Max now owns that store. So he didn't at the time, but he does now. So it's kind of like full circle, so we knew of each other through various connections. And when I was looking for a musician to help me really, pump some life into this album that I was working on, the first person I went to was Max.
I love the music. You got some awesome guitar riffs in there, very funky. Kind of reminds me of some of the parts remind me of like 50s surfer rock almost. It's kind of cool.
Absolutely. Dick Dale, The Ventures, The Shadows, very, very big influences on me, actually. Those instrumental tracks really got my fingers working when I was a teenager.
Cool. Any other musical influences?
Well, obviously Bob Dylan, the Beatles, Beach Boys. This guy's got a lot of different influences besides my influences, but like him and I, we linked back up actually in 2017, or was that 2016?
It's 2017
at the McCartney concert in Chicago. He was sitting in the row behind me, like 9 feet over with his wife, and it was just like cosmic. It was no accident. And I bought those tickets that day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, and at that point I was scrambling to try to do the album. I was kind of in like a weird spot because I had done everything that I could possibly do in the studio, and I didn't know what my next move was going to be. So it was kind of stale for a while there. And then, we went to that concert, and I see Max there, and we're just chit-chatting, and we're catching up on where we're at with our musical projects. And Max had his own thing going, and I was telling him where I was at. And when I was telling him about the project, this Ancient Aliens themed album, he was like, I want to help. And it didn't take me more than a week to polish off the dust and show up at his doorstep. I'm like, okay, let's get to it.
Oh man, he delivered it like it was like Jimmy John's. It was freaky fast, and it was tasty.
So what would you guys say is your goal with your music?
Originally it was when I was doing the Ancient Alien stuff, it was the one thing that really motivated me to finish it was that I knew there was an audience for it. This market's pretty big, and obviously, I knew what Ancient Aliens meant to me, and I think as a musician, you always want to do something that you believe in and that you enjoy. But the one thing that was unique about this, unlike any other music that I'd done before, is I'm like, people actually respond to this. This is something that could take off. So I wanted to connect it and share that with other audiences, because Ancient Aliens and the subject matter means a lot to me, and this is just another medium for us to enjoy that and celebrate that through music, because we all watch the TV shows and go to the conferences and all that and listen to the talks, but music is something that's different. So I wanted to share that with the audience, primarily through the recordings, which are all out there now and available. But I think now moving forward, I think we kind of feel like students, we've been cooped up in the recording studio, and we're just, which is fun and everything, but then you're getting that itch. You're like, you want to get out and show what you could do. So I think now I'd like to get into more performing. I'd like to go to some of these conferences or some of these festivals, and actually play some of these shows, for them. Even on a local level, we got some stuff in the works, to get that going. But I think it's time to just play, and recording's fun, and we got more material we could do down the road, but playing's where it's at right now.
Are you guys building up a band for that, or is it something that the two of you guys would take on?
Yeah, we've been kind of we're feeling people out. We want to get people behind the messages, and we're not looking for like regular jobbers, really. We want the spirit to be right, and I mean, we're not trying to, I don't think, we haven't really even talked about this. I don't think we're trying to make it sound just like the record. We're trying to grow it and make it even more cosmic and powerful. But, it's just getting the people that are going to have the right mojo is the biggest, most important thing moving forward, since we've already set such a strong vibe.
Yeah, we're not in a rush to throw together, an electric band and just go play like at some dive bar for some locals who wouldn't understand it, but for the right opportunity, we can get a lineup together, if it was a festival or something of that nature. At the drop of a hat, the two of us could do an acoustic set anytime, because we know the music like that. But that's, I don't think that gives it the best representation. The music is, I think, meant to play electrically on a stage, with a full band. But so that's kind of where I think we'd like to go with it.
You guys should be out there playing with Angels and Airwaves.
I know, no kidding, right?
Let's campaign for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Definitely.
Speaking of performances, you recorded a couple for us.
Oh,
Let's check out Panspermia.
Hey, it's Majungas, and this song is called Let's go. Many light years away, in the darkest depths of space, cosmic rocks hit the sky. They're seemingly in a race. Shimmering through the galaxy, traveling at incredible speeds, descending upon Earth, intending to spread their seeds. The ingredients of life are packed inside the rocky spheres. Interstellar microbes sprinkled through the atmosphere. Meteoroids, asteroids, comets, and small planetoids. Panspermia, panspermia. Fast forward time by a few billion years, the organisms evolve and active life appears. First came vegetation, then insects and animals. At the bottom of the ocean and in the heart of the jungles, bacteria, where did you come from? The answer is never clear. Extraterrestrial influence, did the aliens send you here? Meteoroids, asteroids, comets, and small planetoids. Panspermia, the building blocks of life.
Damn, that was sick.
I dig it.
Thank you. Thank you.
You want to tell us about that song?
Yeah, so the first album that we did, Ancient Astronaut Theory, it's a concept album. So the whole thing is like a big story, and each song title sort of advances that central premise. And I kind of designed it with a beginning, middle, and end in mind. And I centered it around all of my favorite ancient astronaut theories or concepts. And to do it right, I wanted to start it literally at the beginning of time. So the very first song track on that album is actually an all instrumental called After the Big Bang, and then it leads into Panspermia. So I'm sort of building up the beginning of our universe and ultimately how I think life, could have began here on Earth. How did Earth become a habitable planet? And for the 4.5 billion years that it was just spinning around, I think panspermia is a plausible explanation for at least non-intelligent life forms, via meteorites, asteroids, and whatnot. That bacteria and all that could have been crashing into the Earth, and maybe that's how certain things began.
Totally. I noticed a lot of Mars themes on that first album.
There is, yeah, the middle part. So when I started to get into the construct of human beings and the origin of man, I actually took it to Mars where I felt that possibly could have happened. And so there's a lot of Brandenburg theory in there, that there was an ancient civilization on Mars and they were wiped out due to cataclysm. I'm really intrigued by ancient Mars. I mean, I can't say for sure what happened there, but I think something very interesting.
Yeah, John Brandenburg stuff. I was going to suggest his stuff, but you're already familiar.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Did either of you have an alien or UFO experience?
Aside from being an alien myself, no. Yeah, no, I think that's why I'm so imaginative when I songwrite. Is my life is pretty, vanilla. I haven't had anything crazy happen to me, so I have to, I guess, make stuff up or imagine it, and I think that's what draws me to, UFO sightings, abductees, and all that. It's fascinating to hear about if the stuff is actually legitimate.
Yeah, I haven't seen any serious UFO stuff or anything like that. But things that were weird in my life probably were aliens. Like, you just got to think that way. Got to be optimistic.
So what is your favorite UFO conspiracy theory or UFO theory or ancient alien theory?
Well, I asked myself that on both of the albums. So like I said, when I did Ancient Astronaut Theory, that was more of my favorite concepts and philosophies. So I'm really interested in the origin of mankind, how we were created, and possibly the connection between extraterrestrials, whether it was DNA modification and whatnot. So there's that, and I mentioned the Mars connection, the beginning of our universe, and all that. That was more so Ancient Astronaut Theory, but I think I tackled a little bit more conspiracies and whatnot in Charioteer Through Wormholes, which is our follow-up album. So that one was more exploring different UFO incidences, occurrences, archaeological wonders and whatnot. So yeah, I think for me, I think every UFO discussion should start with the Battle of Los Angeles, and we did a song about that on that album. I just think it's a significant event. It's pretty old. It predates some pretty popular ones. It happened in a big city, not in the middle of a desert that was 2 or 3 people saw. The newspaper articles and all that. There's photographic evidence. So that one's pretty significant to me. That's why I threw it in there. I think more so story. I mean, Bob Lazar's story takes the cake on that one, and we did a song about that one as well. It's just a fascinating story, and so happy that it sort of got resurrected with Jeremy Corbell's film too. And that's actually what inspired me to want to do the song in the first place.
Did you get a chance to meet him?
I didn't. The convention's cool, because you get to see so many people running around, and I recognize a lot of faces, but they're busy hopping, to their next, signing and an event and whatnot. So I didn't get a chance to meet them. I know some people did. Jess, you did, right?
I did. It's because your guys' booths were like this.
Oh.
On different aisles. This was 2 aisles over and all the way on the end. And yours was towards the front and the middle.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's why you probably didn't see him.
Yeah, I always the next mornings, before we go live, I'm always stumbling around because I don't get to roam the aisles, before. And I was just like, oh, you're here, or this is here. I was like, oh, that's cool. I had no idea.
Yeah, I was able to spot you because of your suit.
Yeah, that was what I intended for. So I'm glad it worked.
Where do you get those cool suits? Mars or?
Yeah, so I had so many people in the conventions ask me about them, and it was crazy. I mean, I did it obviously for for an eye catch, for attention, but I never would have fathomed that it would have gotten the response that it did. It literally made me a celebrity in Baltimore when I did the first convention, and people were coming up and asking me where I got it. One guy actually bought a suit on his phone right in front of me when I told him where I got it from. That's how crazy people were.
Yeah, the next suit he's going to get for free.
Yeah.
Right?
I want to endorse it.
I thought about writing him an email and be like, you guys better put me on payroll, because that 60% increase in sales that you just had this weekend, that was all me.
Exactly. You should be their thing.
Yeah, the maker is Oppo Suits, and I actually, they're an online retailer primarily. I think they have some areas that sell them in store, but I found my first one, not this one. It was if you look through some of my social media pictures, you'll find like an acid trip type suit. That was the first one I ever owned, and it was bought at a Spirit Halloween store on the clearance aisle. And the pattern of it caught my attention, and we're both huge Halloween nuts. But when I go to the Halloween store, I don't just buy a bag costume; I create one, from scratch. So I was looking for just some weird odds and ends, and that suit caught my attention.
Fake
It was
blood, severed hand. Holy shit, that suit! Oh, I'm sorry.
It went pretty much like that, yeah. And I saw it, and I go, it was like half off original price. So I go, let me try it on. If it fits, I'm buying it. No questions asked. It's going to be a part of my costume this year. I don't know what it's going to be. I think I was like some weird twisted clown actually, but so I tried it on, and honestly, it fit me to a T. It looked like it was tailor made. So that suit got me started with Oppo Suits. And then when I was gearing up for the first convention, you try to plan as much ahead of time what you're going to do. And, you set up your booth as first thing, merchandise the next. And then, then I'm thinking, wait a minute, what am I going to wear? I was like, what do people even wear at a convention? So I go, well, Majungas, Majungas
This is what you wear.
Even when we were a band, Majungas was always very theatrical. We would always dress up in costumes and do some weird stuff. So I said, I'm bringing the suit for sure. And I said, I should see if I could get another one. And I rummaged the website, and I found the Mr. Galaxy suit. And I added this one, and I didn't get a third one because I didn't think they were going to be that big of a deal. I just thought, it would just, catch some eyes here and there, but people were so into it on Friday and Saturday, and then Sunday I didn't have a suit, and everyone was so let down. And I was like, oh man, I'm sorry. If I do another convention, which I did in LA, I said, I'm going to make sure I get a third one. So I did. I had to look hard, but I did find a third pattern for LA.
Are you going to Dallas Alien Con?
Not as a vendor. I'd like to. I was trying to reach out to their team to try and get the Saturday night gig. They have an entertainment on the Saturday nights, and usually I think they just bring a DJ. At least the past couple of years, but I've seen some previous years where they did some bands. So I threw my hat in the ring there, and hopefully they jump on it. But no, not as a vendor. I think like I said, we're trying to transition more into playing. So if not Alien Con, maybe some of these other ones. That's kind of where I want to go now.
So you guys are into the ancient aliens. Are there any more like recent alien sightings or any kind of local stories that you like?
One of my favorite things that I wanted to talk about was the Yes keyboard player Rick Wakeman from the 70s. He saw an alien sighting in Miami in I think 71 or 72 and wrote a whole album about it called No Earthly Connection. And it's just like this whacked out synthesizer journey. And I don't know how it was a corroborated sighting. There was in the newspaper, they talked about it on TV. It's I don't know how well documented that one is, but he wrote this just exquisite album, which is actually, I was going to throw it in at the tail end of why I was really into arranging the album with Mike. And while he was making it, he made it in Nice, France. And while he made it, like he one evening came to crying on like the city wall, this ancient city wall. He was sitting on top of it, and he was crying, and he didn't know why. And it was like very alien adjacent,
So the entire album was about one incident.
He mused on seeing that. It was all influenced by that. I mean, Rick Wakeman wrote an album about the wives of King Henry VIII. He wrote one about the Knights of the Round Table, epic stuff, nothing short of amazing. But, it was a solo effort. It wasn't really a commercial project. So he really could kind of go deep, and it's just, just reading about that and just like the way that people respond to it, it's not even like the sighting. It's that they had the sight. It's the advancement. It's when somebody starts believing. I was raised on sci-fi, so I've always just been very optimistic about it and been like, sweet, maybe we can party with some aliens. But when a non-believer or just a regular, dabbler sees something or gets into it like that, that's the most important thing, is because it puts your whole existence into a different perspective.
So you guys haven't had any UFO experiences, but have you guys had any paranormal experiences?
Oh yes.
Yeah, Max could share his. I wish I should have made some up, for the show to sound cool.
You have time.
Yeah. No, paranormal was probably my first interest. Like I said, I've always been drawn to the odd, to the fringe, and stuff like that. But no, I've never had any experiences. But I guess I don't know if I wish I did. Yeah, some of those stories you hear about, if they're legitimate,
I've not had any, I've not seen any doors slam shut, but I've seen books blow open to certain pages. I've seen, when somebody says something falls off a shelf. I've felt presence a lot in life, throughout life. I've felt, spirit in the room. I've experienced the cold room thing.
Yeah.
My grandparents' house was a doctor's office in the 1800s, and so people were born there. My dad said when he was a little boy, people would walk up to, he'd be on the porch and people would walk up and say, "I was born in this house." And so obviously then people died in that house. My uncle claims to have caught a photo of an apparition in the dining room of the house, last year or 2 years ago. But so I feel like I've been around that. I feel like that. Well, there's kind of like an EM. I'm very sensitive to magnetism, and I've always felt that. And there's always something in the EM. There's spirits and things can definitely get put in certain places. They can get stuck in loops. And also in Chicago, there's a really famous one called Resurrection Mary. And you can look that up. I think she's been in TV shows as, fictionalized, character, but she rides in your car. She hitchhikes. It's very famous. And then there's allegedly a ghost that bent the gates to the Resurrection Cemetery. And then that one ghost hunter owns the gates now. And the EM readings on there are off the charts.
That Unsolved Mysteries episode of Resurrection Mary still gives me chills.
Yeah,
I remember that. I remember that one in the 90s when it came out.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
And that's not far from here. That's a 25, 35-minute drive from where we're sitting right now. At night I could probably get there. God, if I ignored lights and speeds, I could get there in 15 minutes. So I've driven past it a ton, throughout the years.
But you never picked her up?
I never found her. I wish I could. I have so many questions.
Maybe that should be our next album.
Dude, ghosts.
Resurrection Mary.
Resurrection Mary. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think you'll branch off into other topics for an album like paranormal?
Yeah.
Who knows?
I don't know. Aside from that recent idea, that might fester into something. You never know. It always starts like that. It's like somebody joke about it, and then after a while, you're like, wait a minute, no, I got sounds for that. I could do something.
Well, Mike and I collaborate. Mike fires off all these songs in like a trance, and then he comes to me with them half complete, and I'm like, oh man, that was fast. I thought you wrote that last week. And he's like, yeah, I know, right? And I'm like, okay, I'll play some keyboards, I guess.
Yeah, you had asked if I had ever been abducted or had any alien experiences, but I felt like the way Charioteer Through Wormholes came out, that was done from start to finish in 6 months, which is crazy to fathom, because we were in a rush to get it done, and I didn't plan it that way. Like I thought when I was getting started with something else, I thought maybe I would have an EP or a single to bring out to LA in addition to Ancient Astronaut Theory, our prior album. But it's just yeah, I feel like I was abducted, taken into a spaceship, and they just downloaded this album in my brain, and I woke up and there it was, because it came together that fast. And
yeah, I was, well, that winter I moved my store. I built out a new store and moved it, and then I think the week after we opened the new location, Mike came over and just dropped the mother load, and I was like, oh my God. And I had been like overtired for months, and I was like, all right, let's do it. And I just kind of like, it was very trance-like, really, the whole experience. It was kind of surreal. And I kept saying, I'm not going to get this done, or I'm not going to, like, this isn't happening. I don't know how this is going to work. And then I just kept coming up with clever lines and licks, and I was like, all right. So then it worked.
Your songs are very meaty. Like, there's real content in there. Is there a lot of research that goes into that? Or, I mean, there can't be with that little bit of time.
You'd be surprised at how much information you kind of compress into a song. One of my favorite folk singers, Al Stewart, read a 3,000-page book of the Civil War on the Russian front and wrote it into a 10-minute song called Roads to Moscow.
Yeah. In terms of writing those albums, I mean, you know, I had done a full album before and a couple singles and EPs, you know, and songwriting is hit or miss. Sometimes you sit on one longer than another, but I feel like Ancient Astronaut Theory was probably the easiest thing or the most seamless, I should say, album that I've ever written. Because I think I had it in me, and all I had to do was just sit down and map it out, and then it just poured out. That was the most seamless thing I've ever written. And Charioteer Through Wormholes, I had to sit and do a little bit more, because that was based off of UFO incidences, occurrences, a lot of megalithic structures and whatnot, archaeological wonders. So I had to do a lot more research in that one than I did.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of 3 a.m, you know.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. The red eye Google search. The trick is to take the blue out of your screen at night, and then you can fall asleep. I just learned that last week, so my life is changed.
Yeah,
but
I do that too. Yeah.
The thing about writing, about songwriting and pop songwriting, even, or any sort of music that has structure, is that, like, it has to have a truthiness to it that is, you know, not to bust out a Colbert word or whatever, but, you know, but it has to have this truthy. You have to throw lines in there that don't set in for months. You know, I mean, like, you know, I mean, I think this album gets stuck in my head. I arranged it. It is in my head forever. It will live with me until long past my death. But, you know, but like they're so catchy, but then you hear a line and you think about it, and you think about it in a different light, or you watch something, or you watch an episode. I'm watching the Ancient Aliens on Hulu. I'm running through them. I mean, and I'm like, oh shoot. And it just kind of hits you. So you have to kind of pack in these little nuggets, and it's not to be, you know what I mean? Like, you can't just print off a lyric sheet and have it be, you can't get all the utility out of it in one reading or one listening, you know? It's about being, you know, repeatable. So
What are some of your favorite songs on the new album?
Off the new album, the Bob Lazar song was our favorite. That seemed to be the crowd favorite out in LA too. Yeah, there was some, and I'm glad it was that one, you know, because that, to me, you know, which I believe
it's a hit.
Which I believe, you know, that story's true. Obviously, the song title is called "I Believe in Bob Lazar," but if it actually is in fact true, which is my opinion, that's the most significant story ever. And I'm glad that one came out the best. We didn't plan it that way. You know, there was a lot of cool tunes that I thought might surpass it, but there was just a special feel in that one.
Yeah. The you know, the semi-completed, you know, the draft, you know, mixes that I got that I was working off of, it kind of had that kind of like 60s Munsters wah, 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 wah. So then I was like, oh, you know, it's that Farfisa organ sound, you know, that Italian transistor, that real whiny transistor tone that really just like pops it open, you know what I mean? And it's like, it was a heavy hitter, you know, to begin with, but then I was like, oh, we have to put some icing on the cake, you know?
Yeah, the Farfisa glued that one together.
Oh man,
for sure.
Gotta love it.
You guys gonna make a video for it? That'd be cool.
It's ironic, but yeah, it's in the works. I've been talking with an animator and I never realized this, but there's an awful lot of work that has to go into animations. You just watch cartoons, new episodes every day, and you're just like, oh, it must be pretty simple. There's got to be like a generator or something that does all this, but I guess they have to do it all by hand. And if you're not using like a team that would charge you, $100,000 for a minute or something like that, so yeah, I am working with an animator right now. We're going to piece together some animation, and then we're going to do some hybrid with video for the Lazar one, because that one was our favorite, and everyone seemed to enjoy that one the best. So yeah, no timetable on it. I don't know when it's going to come around, but it's in the works.
We've also joked about doing a music video where we're playing all the parts, like in a Jeff Lynne video, where it's, Mike's playing bass and guitar and singing, and I'm playing guitar and keys and all that. And it would just be fun, it'd just be really fun.
All right, let's listen to your other recording here.
Here's one out of southeastern Turkey. It's called Göbekli Tepe. 1, 2, 3, 4. Göbekli Tepe, I marvel your construction. Who are your makers? What was their intention? Layers of circular megalithic structures with intricate carvings on T-shaped pillars. Hunters and gatherers, how could they construct you? It baffles scholars, no one has a clue. Göbekli Tepe, where are your answers? Maybe we'll find them in Casey's Hall of Records. Could this be the smoking gun of advanced civilizations? Discoveries just like this only raise more questions. Unearthing ancient sites shrouded in mystery. From Pumapunku to the pyramids, now the remains of Göbekli Tepe. Göbekli Tepe.
Max, how long have you been playing?
17 years.
Nice. Shows.
Well, I practiced guitar for 3 or 4 hours a day for a couple of years, and then, I met my girlfriend, and then I went down to like 2.5, 3 hours a day, and then I really didn't learn as quickly after that. So,
Mike,
Yeah.
how about you?
I picked up a guitar kind of later in life. Like I said, I was mostly into creative writing in my early 20s, and then probably guitar I took serious with the lessons at Mac's store when I was like 23, and that whole musical process of learning the instrument, and then ultimately songwriting ended up coming in a little bit later. So I started Majungas. I was like 27, 28, and that was the only music project I've ever done. So I was kind of a novice. That's why I actually formed the band at first, because I had, I think, a knack for creating catchy compositions, but I knew what my limitations were. Like, I can't play like Max can, you know. So
Mike has some solos on the album.
A little bit, yeah. And Max had to talk me into him because I'm really self-conscious about it. You know, like I always think he could play it so much better. Why would I ever want my solo in there, you know?
But I'm a constructor, not a destructor, Mike.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's lovely. I'm going to keep it.
I remember that we kept going back and forth on the Ancient Astronaut Theory album, on the first song called After the Big Bang. All those leads were actually mine, and I kept begging him to replace them. I'm like, dude, you know, like we would always have a nice long session. I'm like, so what about After the Big Bang? I was like, you know, what about that? And you're like, nah, it's good. And I thought he was just getting tired. You know, it's like end of the night.
Yeah, no. I mean, but the thing is, I always tell him, I'm like, dude, I'm done. I always be like, I cannot play 2 more notes. But then he's like, are you sure? Are you sure? And I'm like, dude, it's good. Leave it.
Yeah, he was insistent on a few, and then I think Oumuamua, I had a solo on that one on the new album, and he was telling me that one's a keeper. So yeah, you know.
Oh yeah.
After listening to after a while, I go, I guess it works.
Oh yeah, that was the take. That was the take. I didn't want to have to compete with that.
Yeah.
You got to work smart, not hard.
That's right. That last song seemed to have a lot of research probably went into it.
Yeah, I researched more in the Charioteer Through Wormholes album than I ever have researched in my life, you know, because it meant it was important for me to make sure that I was accurate and I was getting the stories right. And I was real paranoid that I was going to say something wrong or inaccurate and people were going to throw bricks through my window or something like that. So, you know,
it would have been me. It would have been me.
So I researched a ton into that, but you know what, I knew a lot about it as well. So it wasn't too terrible. Just more so dotting the I's, crossing the T's. And Göbekli Tepe, that was one that I'd settled on because I didn't want to get too carried away with it. I wanted to make sure I covered all of my favorite cases. And I think that's why this album is so special to me. The Charioteer Through Wormholes album is all those incidences and stuff that I talk about. Those are all like my highlights, my favorites, you know, the ones that I feel are the most interesting or compelling or have some merit behind it. And so when I was looking for a megalithic type site, you know, I had all different titles on the table. I had the pyramids, Pumapunku, Göbekli Tepe was on there, and many others. And when I was I had to do like a pros and cons list almost to settle on one. And when I looked at that, I said, which one's the most compelling? And I was like, it's Göbekli Tepe. I go, it's the oldest. No one's claimed it. It was just buried under piles of earth for God knows how long, and no one seems to be interested in talking about it anymore. You know, so it's
and the dirt and the Earth Pyramid in Turkey as well. That's being covered up. There's lots of stuff coming from Turkey, or that is in Turkey. Most of ancient Greece is in Turkey. You know, when you just have to look at it, it's you know, it is really like the ground zero of a lot of things, a lot of culture, and a lot of artifacts, really, you know. And yeah, I mean, I was obsessed with Turkey and archaeology, and I'm on Instagram on all the archaeology stuff, and you know, ancient Egypt, ancient Greece, and then he throws that song at me, and I'm like, whoa! I was like, aliens.
So who did the album artwork for Chariot Through Wormholes?
Oh, that was Christina Mirvold is her name. She's an artist out of the UK. I was looking for someone who could do a digital artwork of me driving in a golden flyer, wearing the suit. So it was a very odd request, and very few people were coming through with something. But Christina was all over it, and she was really enthusiastic about it. And I love the vibe. I think I looked back on our email exchange afterwards, that it didn't feel like it, but we probably exchanged somewhere close to 80 emails about the whole project, just for 2 images, front and back. Oh, and the disc, of course. And I was just like, how did we have that much of a conversation over that? I was like, did it feel like it? But yeah, she killed it. So look up Christina Mirvold. She did a great job. And special props to Ananya Talvi from Germany, who did our first album cover. She liked the concept so much. It was a previous artwork that she had constructed, and she just said, you know, take the artwork and use it. She was just excited to be part of it.
Yeah. And one thing is that Mike looks less like an alien on the alien cover. She like is like covering up his true nature, you know, and his charioteering. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at it, you know, it's right up there. It's like he looks like just like a normal human, not an alien like he really is. You know, so you know, it was an excellent cover up work. You know, like it's like if Mike weren't an alien.
That was part of the instructions.
Right. Yeah. It was like, that was probably like 20 or 30 emails. It was like, make sure that I look like, you know, like a human, like totally human, nothing weird.
Yeah. Nope. Send it back. More human. Come on.
Conspiracy going on here.
Yeah.
What? No. What? No, nothing.
Just me doing human things.
Being human.
Hello, fellow human. Playing some human rock and roll.
Smoking some meats.
Human meat. No.
So we talked about paranormal experiences and UFO experiences. Has there been any kind of Men in Black in your audience?
Ooh.
Has there been any Men in Black in the audience? I don't think we would know, right?
Well,
they're pretty sleuthy.
yeah, I mean, yeah.
And if they did, they would have erased the encounter. So
I mean, oh yeah, and I was gonna say that earlier when it's like, well, have you had any alien experiences? What? How would I know that? You know, like that I remember? No, not that I remember, but hopefully something. You know,
what's this weird lump embedded in my skin?
Dude, I got this weird glowing thing. Oh,
Probably inspired you to write the albums, in the very least.
It's possible. You know, it's funny because one of my good vendor friends out in that I've become acquainted with out in the conventions at Alien Con, Across the Puddle. You got to look them up, by the way. Acrossthepuddle.com. They got this. They gave us this scarf here, this lovely little medallion that I'm wearing on my jacket here. Just buy everything from them. But anyway, they were. They were talking to one of the other guys around the area, and he was whispering to Mary, is her name, and he goes, I think that guy in the corner, there's the most alien out of all of us. And he was talking about me, and you knew I would laugh at it, so she came up and told me right after, and I was just like, well, he's right, you know.
yeah, for sure.
What kind of feedback do you get from listeners?
You know, a lot of people in Alien Con, they would they were asking, you know, why I did the album at first, you know, because it's such an original concept that they weren't, I guess, expecting it. They're like, what made you do this album? And I said, well, clearly I'm the biggest fan of Ancient Aliens here. I'm just, you know, I just happen to be a musician. So, so you get that, but a lot of people love it. You know, I mean, we've been fortunate lately, been played on a lot of podcasts. Hysteria 51, they're locals from Berwyn too, by the way, that we met out in LA of all places, even though we're 20 minutes apart geographically here. They've been playing a lot of our tunes. So, you know, a lot, and the Alien Theorists Theorizing from Canada, they were the first podcast to ever play any of our tunes. We also met them out at Alien Con. So it's kind of cool to, you know, meet some of these people that have been digging our stuff for a while, but the fans them well, you know, I mean, they would either, you know, they would hear some of the music there and they'd be grooving along to it, and they would either invest in a copy right then and there, or they grab a card and listen to it later. And then we got a lot of post follow-up Instagram messages and whatnot, like, hey man, I listened to the album, it's actually really cool, you know, when's the next one coming, stuff like that. I had a lot of tactics too with Max's solos and riffs. You know, whenever there was a lot of foot traffic, I would always go to Intergalactic Invasion and just rip the solo, and you would just see people's heads turn, and you know, and then people
Unleash Max Cherry.
People would come over and be like, "Is that you ripping up the guitar there?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, yeah, no, absolutely."
I'll let that slide this time. This time, Mike.
No, yeah. So, no, people have been digging it.
Awesome.
Wait, what song was that? I want to make sure to check it out.
Oh, yeah, it's off the first album, Ancient Astronaut Theory, Intergalactic Invasion.
Okay.
It's a solo I nicknamed for Max the Confession, because when I heard it, I was just like, man, you got something off your chest on that.
Oh,
one.
yeah.
that was
no,
epic.
I had bourbon. It was bourbon.
Yeah.
That night was wild. I recorded like a third of the album that night. I was ripping. I was ripping on my Les Paul.
The best feedback that I've ever gotten, it comes from the man, Diamond David Childress. He came by the booth in LA almost every day just to chit chat a little bit in between his conference talks and whatnot. And he's told me, hey, I enjoy listening to the album, and that just meant the world to me because I got into this thing because of Ancient Aliens, and with him being a front runner in this industry for such a long time as a writer and world explorer and co-star of the show, obviously, that meant a lot. And he actually sells the album Ancient Astronaut Theory at his store, adventuresunlimitedpress.com. You got to go to the music section in the store. It's the only place that you can get a physical copy of the album. Of course, unless you catch me at a convention, which is far and few in between. So,
I got some.
yeah, there you go.
Nice.
There you go.
We like you. And the CDs, our producer is just such an artist. He really just dialed everything in so well, and there's just nothing better than cranking the CD up. I mean, it's great on the phone in the car, at work, you got it on headphones or whatever. But when you just like that Intergalactic Invasion, that's a great example. That's just shreds, and like, and Mike, like just Mike's hooks are just so catchy. They're just like stuck in my head. Seriously. Like I wake up in the morning, I'm brushing my teeth, bands, like for real. Like, I mean, it is like, it never ends.
Are you guys working on anything currently?
No, we're I guess maybe slightly fatigued. I mean, we did 2 albums in a year, and 2 conventions for me in a year. So we're not in a rush to piece together a third one right now. I do have some loose concepts and a few different sounds that are festering, but I want to make sure we take our time with this one because, like Max said, I'd always kind of constructed them and just dropped it on them, and I think we owe it to each other to actually truly collaborate one from start to finish together, and I think it'll come out real nice. So, but we already got a nice collection of music now, so we're gonna enjoy that and just bask that in and try and play some shows, get some opportunities to celebrate that, and in the meantime, we'll start to slowly work in a third one.
Yeah, I mean, we really want to, if we do come up with material, the best place to hone it would be on the stage, because just when you're feeling it, it just comes off so good,
Do you guys have any upcoming shows?
No, we're planning. We're trying to plan something. I had mentioned the Hysteria 51 folks that we met out in LA, but they're from Berwyn, Illinois, which is not far from us, and they're trying to put together a live podcast / live performance with Majungas. So that is something we would generate an electric band for and rock that show. So it's in production right now, but we don't have any dead set dates right now. We're just sort of feeling it out, seeing what we could get.
Hey Joe, can you get something set up at Adventures Unlimited?
That is a great idea.
We could do it. We could do an acoustic show, like I said, at the drop of a hat. So, and that's a drive we could do easily, 90 minutes. So yeah, if you wanted us to come out there and play some of the tunes acoustically, and we'll do that in a heartbeat.
So how can people find you?
If you go to our website, majungas.com, it's got links to everything. You could stream all of our music there. It's got links to all of the other streaming methods, Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, so on and so forth. And also links to all of our socials too, fairly active on those.
Thank you so much for joining us on another amazing episode of Strange Tales Weekly. Thank you to Majungas. And remember to stay strange.
Yeah, it's been strange. Thanks for having us, and let's do it again sometime.